Vintage one is centrality, complex restriction, migration, wins, labor mobility between Austin state limits, interregional labor markets, Cadi 16, Austin economic communities, central Western regional free movement, good services, skilled labor, capital free movement, skilled labor, lifetime, life, police, regional free business, protecting policy, middle income, rising fields, labor mobility, position, like firm economic higher from the Austin member states for skilled labor policies, labor shortages exist in the Philippines, Indonesia, and Vietnam that can benefit labor for the Austin member states. Other countries require affordable labor, establishing common guidelines for the regional business sectors, but workers want interconnectivity, common and higher foreign work them, that's hard to do. Austin is always a visa and work from serious mobility is necessary for Austin development, fills in the last second economic integration, until 19 for Austin labor mobility, low placing the common lab of volumes, growing major cars, and not with AEC, new substitute, competitive, innovate, dynamic, economic, substantial, productive, efficiency, innovation, still workers, is successful going venture, tracker, and so like toxic resources, and ego has skills made for low, so works, make sure going in sources scarcity, make more going to population, county literature, is the actual necessity for training, which time for very cost for motivation, that benefit both and destination, economy, integrated, economic community is necessary for Austin centrality and literature, general 14, Austin, the local regional split, increased prosperity, and pivotal, in the whole Asian region, some acceptance, and new regional literature, often moving towards ACC and remarkable gains, security, turn to economic movement, economic development, higher income, and normally through more deeply integrated economic integration, correct prosperity, also looking at broader regional cooperation, regional firms that started are driven by Austin and union leadership, integration, centrality, Theodora, 16 centrality, crucial relevant, Austin relevancy, the idea that Austin has the capacity to play leading driving low VCs, regional genocide, pushing an Austin leader as a leader driving full concern, puzzle running Austin to the eastern part of the cohesive strategic coherent economic process, Austin serves foundation for Austin with credibility, strong central charter parties, next up, our driving community building, line regional Western, implement centrality, cosmetic behavior, coherently, everything to judgment on our favor of practice, changing security environments, put centrality on edge, reform, coherence, and integration, track back, watch me. So wait, child facing often changes security environment by Chinese law, we can also name for the US and different architects, Southeast Asian, public, coherence, or regional outlook, because across all our states, we see retreat towards Austin engagement, knowledge, Austin, different trade, investment, activity, law, structure, and nexus for answer, and continued relevance. Austin centrality is key to inclusion, independent rules-based order that solves Asian conflicts, way, 20 the global Asian centrality, codifies the primary driving force, relation, corporations, solving crucial, trade, inclusive, rules-based regional architecture. Austin has been more effective than its firm architecture. Building which is able to kind of a declaration kind of comparison to more domain for the development use in China. Territories have been called by Austin intervention, lots of meaningful official also allows security firms, the strong Austin is building way to come together. So a many meaningful power and the world prefer middle power to sleep better on Austin's empirical success. Mahubani 228. One region is starting with peaceful and prosperous top towards bipolar era 3 decades analysts believe that Asia was destined for complications down the 5th decade of peace, avoiding interstate conflicts with significant ethnic and religious diversity to Austin, which helped forge regional development, pragmatism, and accommodation. Our Austin is able to drive practice, great personality, we can only use one greater path, finding neutral and independent model, pragmatic custom, world leader facing this yourself approach. Age of war estimates that outweighs Gadi 17. Asia's most militarized region, the war 7 large military are all in Asia. 7 6 legal frontiers of war behind peaceful organization, territorial sleep, lack of superior structure, even our zones, Asia plus one to use military person from government skills, use military power, because large scale military conflicts, more questioning told us the war. Reasserted the Austin centrality is key to revitalize faith in multilateralism. Now it's key German 120. Austin's regional organization plays central role in the upgrade. Austin centrality is resilience, purpose collaboration for nation, crucial government safety, all firm exchanging data. Data also plays central role in each other's investment measures, collaboration among us, most international collaboration, most allow just for global level. Austin regional long last year, Muslims and displaced and values of Austin counties and narratives. Both countries global health crisis and try Austin Madison is urgently needed. Austin can bring all isles to the table. Lead 22 Austin Horns collective action bring key stakeholders together with profit and multilateral collaboration back to the region. A unique to an economic position which ties all major pilots to represent the economic makers to good but also developing economies or reason why Austin is very well in the global stage. Inclusive and open multilateral governance is key to resolve a new larger and Law 22 urgent need for the world to come together to address crisis. COVID highlighted weakness, global cooperation, world economic rapture by fishing and pollution for other spaces than only unfit. Nuclear disarmament has stalled. Institutions need to rise for cooperation. New era responses are not learning multiple stakeholders and data evolving. We're collective action different levels, local, regional, and global between states, policy, inclusive identified solutions, and creates legitimacy, means states have a seat in the table, multilateral exchanges, transparency can play a big role in multilateral action to approach charity, include the list, one merger, state, and trust in the local corporate conveyance, social services, I just put no stake and hope to weather and attacking those external, especially low times quality. Different on needle, potential things, you may think that the fundamental countries, these weapons, back shot, rather than having working exists in danger feature. Our country, that's what's literally are present directly on the world, equal to market, but today's false out control, not back to right country, makes sense of what mean anything we're all the ones on our different one manifest and skip advantage 2 for now. Plantex. Just regards of boards and countries in the association, Southeast Asian nations, the place holds in regulation, close business accommodation, point out 6 and Southeast country, 1 minute, 1 month, president, bunch of cleaner, accommodation, so we move people, so don't generally feel with really cost, with that stretch, was a limitation, when you chain, the limitation, different countries, you go somewhere, no sign, action, every time, always coming up, report, not giving the destination. Rules and regulations and like this piece of AC, the firm the standard back and inspect will be in touch with financial developers, they'll just file problem. 18 pleasure funds are working with or running there's also at least common words space in future makes often hard work and written long as offset like something represented by regional system. There's and your chase mark for cartels and of course every model of new doping plays a role in ability to pursue rewards that are years away. Prefer extinction is distinct phenomena that at least break 16 national equality. Like they imagine that you can young from it, not the communication action, so this spells right as value with marrying being on like natural implementation that forms of diverse forms of meaning. The finish 2. Irregular migration sports trains natural organized crime use sports are the root cause for her. 1. organized crime migration, risk cost organization, migration, limitation, migration opportunities, let people really good confidence or offer checking organization, about 80 back from offense or those adults, and again, having kind of drug trafficking criminal organization, use their knowledge to take new market, and criminal organization, organization, state, regardless organization, legislation, black, like organization, legislation, different, this might be working on different countries, United States, only to escape intolerable conditions. It's reverse causal strict force control. Third party syndicates, more involvement, 13 powerful for strike people, migrants, states, and resistance to migration, migration, and debate for continuous migration, substance, class, by Brussels, migration, seekers, and with one migration, built up with preferred one migration, and these are more sensitive, migration continue to grow migrants, those places have changed, now from the ratio of Brussels, now position, just personal life, human rights, personal immigration, transportation, and enforcement action, migrants held a year in detention for considerable periods of time. Migrants, felon funds, organized crime, and terror, fact, 22 migrants, felon journeys, and proceed from one time, honey, victims, procedure for detention to be, and SAU, 10 no doubt, migrants, felon laws, proceedings, and personal money, and migrants, face smugglers in cash. That puts more time, money in the hands of organized terror groups. Some term figures 2018 country access up to groups such as JMNG, AHG, criminal specific budget for implemented routine, partnership organization, organization, global triangle, second life, members, and regional ones, coincide the just relations and authentic and narcotics in Southeast Asia.
To be clear, kind of at FATF, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Oh no, I cut Sumter and Franco at Southeast Asia.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. Okay. You good?
Yeah.
Thanks. So I guess the centrality advantage, in terms of like global multilateralism, who gives a fuck about in bumfuck nowhere that have like 1 million people each like being together and I don't know, coming together via the ASEAN way or whatever?
Sure. So I think ASEAN multilateralism extends beyond regional integration. The Hui evidence makes a claim about ASEAN's ability to get China to sign on the Declaration on the Conduct of Parties, which helped to limit territorial disputes.
Why is ASEAN key to get China to sign that?
The argument is that ASEAN brings multiple people to the table, their ability to, so there's multiple arguments. First is that ASEAN as an organization has proven the ability to come to consensus regarding signing legislation proven by the AEC. Second, the argument is that the ASEAN way and the way that ASEAN has paved regional integration is through peaceful dialogues that are facilitated between nations.
Have they accomplished anything so far?
Yeah, that's what I just said. ASEAN was effective. I can read a line from the Hui evidence if you want, but it's making a claim about how ASEAN was able to get China to sign on to regional integration, to a regional piece of legislation that limited SES disputes.
That's fine. The second advantage, what causes like human trafficking, I guess?
Sure, the argument is that in the status quo, people within ASEAN want to migrate, but they can't because of perceptive risk associated with migration, which forces them to search out.
Okay, read my line from this. As like Southeast Asia.
The 1AC Bill Miller and Baumeister card is making a claim about Southeast Asia. The entire card is written in the context of Southeast Asia.
Okay, that's let's see. The existential threats, why is ASEAN specifically key?
I mean, in the context of managing existential threats, we've made a claim about why ASEAN paves the way for broader multilateralism, which is crucial to resolving existential threats.
Okay, so the argument I want to see is like, ASEAN is good at creating multilateralism, opening borders between ASEAN, allows them to cooperate on that.
You're talking about the multilateralism internally uniquely, yes, but we have an external impact that's not reliant on that as well.
The Asia war stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, sure.
Okay, that's fine. What is middle power diplomacy? Middle power diplomacy?
Yeah, the middle power diplomacy argument is kind of, I guess the argument is that middle powers in the status quo are more likely to engage in territorial disputes with one another. The argument is that effective collaboration amongst them is crucial to resolving territorial disputes and making them more incentive, or like increasing incentivization.
The coding evidence, like investment, capital, how does opening borders for human migration solve any of those things?
Sure, so when it's talking, it specifically says skilled labor, the argument is
that
skilled
labor is like one of 5 things, Yesh. Why? How do you solve 4 out of 5?
So the argument is that all of those things are resolved by increasing human migration. The argument is that different countries have different needs. Yeah, the argument is that different countries have different needs that need to be met. In the status quo, that is not happening. Opening borders.
Okay, so why does that mean that, like, I don't know, Myanmar is suddenly going to have more investment in it and more capital in it than like it does before?
I don't understand the question. People can move wherever they want to move in the world of the plan. The argument is that different countries have different labor mobility needs. Or
sure, but your evidence is not just about labor mobility. It's about that's fine. I'll send it. It's going to be read in case it's going to be advantage 1, advantage 2, and then another section. interpretation and violation of words of the term are the last of every country entered. Long as we do. The term of words and also let everyone know any sense of any state of 20. Don't words of the time, these listening version of restrict immigration, immigrants, or something like this, which refuse on any country enters, even though ways of reason, the status of the only words listening from argument, words of words, and not more words. Actually, been also words is people of certain countries multilateral last road over the information mass migration. Words of everyone else altered division specificity the next few I.e. just have for only ASEAN countries before the specific focus on ASEAN and the advantage competing interpretation see how second when they do not have for reasonabilities are arbitrary not predictable by the preparations are not bad by the resolution dropped the rate of future abuse. Canada next ASEAN states on establishing blockchain version for global citizenship. ASEAN states on offer blockchain citizenship for all migrants between the countries. ASEAN states on make between the countries established enrollment systems that work control points. Humans have remote factors in other countries increasing multi-area transit systems on the right. Will not be models as no functionality or interest in income sources. Documentation equipment of national blockchain. Global problem for being 20. Time governments under something digital like small countries, almost small countries in the official international recognition, ID, senior social preservation, mobility, lack of identification, immigrants and refugees, or space for ID, point of borders means no proof of ID or citizenship allows not. Cross the year 22 and proves no borders is not. Efficient security, trust, transparency, and privacy, the loss of cameras is impossible, and pandemics are existential diamonds 21. Human simply right, contingent legal diseases, risk of right, versus passing this, and other exotic animals, go microbation, however, 100 billion viruses, pandemics, and that their devoted diseases result in completion. Erase and viruses involve past cameras, diamonds 21. This will more lethal new variants and mutations of it, available vaccines by using antibodies and changing the virus. Next up. ASEAN member states on Brunei, Jerusalem, should open borders to other ASEAN protocol and resolve the disputes eventually rule that ASEAN member states are hard to implement open borders for visa free opening to revive ASEAN CDS by resolving follows consultation with office conciliation, mediation, arbitration by panel panels, such as automatic adopting SEO. Or number 20 vote, no pencil, number informative. Arbitration procedure must enforce the decision. ESM AC will not reach its full potential in 2019. ESM 2019 revision, but the inconsistencies of decision revision to enhance quality and many structural problems give the ESM more credibility. 2019 will discardable depending on what extent ESM 2019 is used, and strengthening the ASEAN disputes on the solid war turns the assets of the conflict borders. Protection weaken ASEAN's role in managing a regional conflict. ASEAN not force and ASEAN DSM and vital weaknesses for conflict that provides responsible ideally in your regional conflict should be solved by ASEAN DSM conflict parties not accept ASEAN DSM to go for other mechanisms. ASEAN community security dispute brought to the video events and others lack of confidence in the ASEAN for conflict management system fear more on regional conflicts and implementation of the ASEAN DSM. ASEAN's DSM to handle regional conflicts on case centrality one coding contains all causes that highlighted for us 8 point test community economic community protections policies on politics on labor movement that common impossible against 15. Integration of political coordination and how we compare to the EU becomes the differences in political ideology that things differences to territory, economic development, good message for the raw materials and the law and the value chain still needs support development and return really hardly possible without appearance that are free movement also involved non-interference. Yet not prepared to become a customs union or the Schengen. Even third labor integration. Actually said the third part of EU style border integration practices also causes war making 20. Open border within confederations with for greater consolidation of our region or state control the flow of migrants locally once the of themselves and the recently stop those that central government from conflict erasing wars and peace to the central government, likely to bring about greater regional conflict. The second one is obviously including trackings due to online scams on border controls, views 122. Serious purpose received reported to Hong Kong, there is condemning forced doing the work that these issues driving the time times are middle class workers and working situations. On Facebook, on the part of Facebook second, never probably in the comments of countries outside of Southeast Asia, even their evidence reports no link between migrants funding and terror. Two, limiting terror financing and migrant slugging the Americans in Libya, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, ongoing instability in Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan, our networks in North Africa, FTS, Libya, Morocco, Eastern Europe, Italy, to reach Malta. No in relation to links with TTF and migrant slugging in South Asia. Of human smuggling being the key profit driver of organized crime for Myanmar's become the largest global center for the security laws and remain hidden law enforcement or professional rights to transfer something perfectly met these requirements in relation to blocking laws. For some to pursue the notice of business activities or so profitable to work so formally. Next, Austin is bad. The one multilateral conferences, multilateral counterproductive for regional actors destroying accountability and Russian and as it so foreseen. Regional order is the top of the benefits of Austin. Multilateralism given using possible parties. Competitions and the Austrian Awakeners effective conflict management, the SES in 1916. Sergeant C disputes was the representative of the association by the region Senate was one against China. The Austrian Awakeners not specified Chinese. Progressive and SES conflict escalates with Scotland Chinese confidence. 420. Everything that's internal be sharply related to war aggression against Taiwan, feel like growing inside building confidence. Taiwan both military installations at the SES military competition laws involved laws of nuclear hires, nuclear solution, and conventional forces. I can imagine stuff. I'm assuming you all want to work on.
I'll start. Yes, you good? Yeah. Cool. The case you've read that the ASEAN, the impact section you've read the ASEAN way fails. The case you've read the plan fractures ASEAN. Can you reconcile those?
Our argument is that one is a solvency deficit.
You explicitly framed it as a reason that the plan fractures ASEAN, which is explicitly our internal link to
Sure, our argument is about how ASEAN multilateralism
is not necessarily the ASEAN cooperation. Our internal link to multilateral is ASEAN unity. I'm confused as to how you can reconcile those.
Sure, the argument that we make and evidence makes is pretty specific about how the open borders just leads to consolidation. Turns the affirmative insofar as the affirmative is about all these countries working together equally and working together cooperatively, but the argument that the affirmative makes or that the negative makes is that these open borders is functionally going to lead to a global one country consolidate power to prevent them from being able to do coherent conflict management. And the reason that A fractures the area which caused war and B that also does not hinder the argument that we're making is they can still try to do conflict dispute management in the SES. The argument we're making is that's probably just going to be even more unsuccessful than not one of the ASEAN countries pushing their agenda.
The SES impact proper, wherever you I guess what piece of one is the impact uniqueness evidence indicates that SES conflicts escalate in the status quo.
What do you mean? Like it's not escalating?
Or yeah, sure, sorry.
Sure, our argument is that the Florida evidence says that tensions are existing right now.
Okay, that's fine. The status of the counter plans.
Well, conditional, obviously.
Okay, cool. The second counter plan, I guess. How does adoption of blockchain within ASEAN cause global follow-on?
Sure, I guess. First, it's about how necessarily blockchain in and of itself can be good in any capacity. Right, so it's about how blockchain adoption Apple can use dynamics. The argument we'll make is we can read through in our evidence if you'd like, but the argument that we'll make is adopting blockchain in ASEAN as far as you have. So here the affirmative says that ASEAN has no ripple effect externally, which means that there's no longer any point of the affirmative if you say that ASEAN has no cloud follow on externally.
The counter plan says offer instantaneous digital sponsorship for blockchain citizenship to all migrants between the countries. I guess what does that look like in low-income ASEAN countries?
What do you mean?
What does it mean to offer, I guess, in a regional setting?
Okay, do you know how the blockchain works?
Not really explained.
Okay, so fundamentally what the this kind of sounds stupid like some sci-fi shit, but it makes sense. Right? So fundamentally the way that blockchain works is that there's a bunch of decentralized nodes, and what the affirmative does is it just puts each person's information on a bunch of these, the counterplan does is it puts all these people's information onto a set of these decentralized nodes, right? And we have for example, one person's contact tracing information on one part. We have their information, for example, first and last names are generally often on the same part of the blockchain because that would lead to hacking, which is bad, etc. Right? And so that's why the blockchain also can be hacked. But the argument that we're making is that you just if you were registered in ASEAN in any of the countries, you are put into the blockchain, and you are registered into the blockchain in a manner that is unhackable.
Okay.
Because technology is great.
That's fine. I will start practicing. Continues. There is case. Or first I'll send it actually. Okay, it's been sent.
zero.
Case
Genius.
T, yeah, the blockchain counterclaim the EDS section.
Cool, so just case sentient order.
Yeah.
Assuming case is also just advantage 1, advantage 2.
Yeah.
Sure.
Anyone not good?
I'm good.
Also, the Robo is limited to higher restriction cause the top of the heart of the countries also trying to have Southeast Asian countries where they're more against Austin country Congress also trying and leadership drop is a word factory from war from a top escalation in Asia that is this gymnast calculation the plan sufficient is empirically proven who says that the 1EC is sufficient because Austin has empirically been able to bring middle power side to table including first in China to regionally cooperate which is the reason we turn the SES stuff. No causes skilled labor freedom of goods are all solved by the absence of human capital is the root cause of lack of goods and services etc. Also 1EC caught insolvency 1EC produces it makes a claim broadly about the structure by which Austin requires regional integration. The plan regionally integrates them which is key because lack of uniform policies means that the rest of the all causes are insufficient to solve. Lack of cohesive regional framework is solved by the act by forcing nations to act in unison, which is what their second solved piece of evidence is talking about. The argument about how it fractures Austin is a double turn with the SES stuff. The internal link to resolving SES conflicts is Austin unity. The entirety of the 1EC and multilateralism is reliant on Austin unity, but they said that we fracture Austin, which is the reason that they have just massively double turned themselves on this page. But the plan does not fracture Austin. The court does not make a claim. The court does not justify what they think it makes a claim about. McMahon is talking about consolidation of power with one country taking over, but the plan resolves that because it doesn't. Because the ASEAN way inherently relies on that, i.e. at each ASEAN forum, one country has the ability to act in power to make decisions on behalf of other countries, which means it's just the regional structure of ASEAN. It doesn't in any way to fracture ASEAN, which means the plan is insufficient to solve that, plus of course the nations act in unison, which is crucial to bringing nations to the table, not going for advantage two, I'll concede all causes, and that there's no internal link. SES stuff, their impact on is incoherent. They're going to we haven't conceded that ASEAN we still trust news for the multilateral regional framing. Now SES war about 20 meters much off the regional bridge to reach out to down here, worse away after multiple times over 8,000 years of these has remained low due to these activities that are brushing by. Most they also dropped one issue that says that we specifically solve SES conflict because the plan is sufficient. Of course, the plan has empirically been the only way to bring the United States and China to the table to work together, which is crucial for middle parts of the T. I need the plan is no ASEAN birth that consists of all foreign countries and ASEAN for politics and vaccinally documentary terms to be also based on revenge for company competition dealings are dropped for random impact cards to counter trip of include open borders with already existing regional organizations. That constitution long leads 12 1. This is the reholding of the carbon borders and also led to include the countries that are restricting country borders. Big countries are personal and countries about wars from the overall jobs like multiple times. EU left with help countries country agreed open wars is not all or nothing. We'll consider 18 what open wars means is the EU must fight open wars not relatively entry residents and UK citizens but not the regional approaches are legit. Having 19 and non open wars could be reviewed United States, Canada, and government general regional cooperations as prefer after Afghan assaulty acquisition countries to open wars. A lot of cause absolute if it picks up a country restrictions no action has assaulty deficit to the Swaziland takes us out of advantage franking on the receiving country, but their model means generics can be controlled by the sending country, which Afghan religion cannot generate opportunity that always on reversibility. The one that can record the 6 was the and debatability, always predictability, debates and uses for equal class between the app, and then that means deviating from the environment equal playing field is naturally the blockchain of permutation to the complex plan plus literally that's every week the applet complexity that's it the counter resolves explicit border system without complex restrictions presence and then going to the plasma migration two times as long as the term used content for primary communication migration need reframe goals location number of regular workers. The counter plan reifies existing documents that make labor integration helpful requires verification through blockchain and citizenship, which is exactly what deters migration in the status quo. The ability to regionally integrate blockchains deter the zero specific evidence that is sufficient to justify counter plan solvency. Lower nations are deterred from movement because if everyone is framed already in blockchain then that means it's no different than the plan which reverses changing to the template, but if it's a restriction, then that means lower income countries aren't able to integrate. No spillover argument for the net benefit. There's no reason the common is key to set precedent, and if they're worried about their piercings and it doesn't spill over, permutation to the plan and adopt blockchain requirements in state municipalities. That's what their solving and thinks is good, and it doesn't make a claim for transnational blockchain because of the difficulty with integrating the EDSM title and permutation to the common resolving to lower very much resolve until it just come to agreement just because your dictionary resolve defines every information immediacy requires renewableness permutation to the app about impacts also credibility which still plans all day through different from selection permutation justifies the course of countries the association Southeast Asian it's said Brunei Brunei there was some about Austin Mercy thought from these suits against all Brunei Austin Mercy thought to use the 2019 Austin for Colombian to request arbitration by the resolve disputes Austin Mercy thought the personalization testing non-intrinsic function intrinsic firms are testing title plan net benefit germane is the decision solved to say can't solve decision process cause deadlock and eliminate functionality. This is the reason it can't solve centrality with strong existing non-convergent central left for percent force and class effect decision making system D systems not to bring decision on some resolve dispute or goal and why the alpha the word as an unload more often not so that resolve non-convergent decision not to win glue or by combination and also for a real dispute but against themselves. Move back.
Cool. 5 minutes nerds is the game, right?
Yeah.
it's going to be blockchain, EDSM, then the impactor. Okay, anyone not good?
No doubt.
No. Okay. Yes, good.
Yeah.
Ben.
I'm good, yeah.
Blockchain, EDSM, group implementation, and test competition. We're going through the impactor and it's poorly handled by the 1 year. We're going to have there's a couple of balances the 1 year might be able to use this wherever we're going to go down every single one of those and pick them. But first, extend ASEAN balance for ASEAN balance that every time by the affirmative group ASEAN confusions inherently can lead to ASEAN having more political paths for the affirmative own logic. That's our we evidence. At least in that front end for your other confidence sounds like the SCS confidence will try to use their own forms of mediation like the ASEAN way, but the Hernandez evidence from the 1 and C specifically proves that the ASEAN way is not flexible and can't foresee changes in the SCS. For example, if ASEAN implemented their sort of conflict resolution mechanism right now, they can't foresee things like China going and building more islands closer to Taiwan in the future, more artificial islands, which is going to lead to them having sort of more space in the SCS, etc., which means that it would be rich and it can't account for those things, which means that they can't account for things like China building new artificial islands in the SCS to increase their hold in the region, or for the US to be able to sort of, or they can't account for things in the US way after China, because the US is spiraling right now in terms of economic capabilities. We need to check back China in order to be able to sort of have our hegemony back. They can't account for this thing that's for the ASEAN because it's rigid and not flexible. That means that because it's not a sort of living type of conflict resolution mechanism and one that is sort of fixed, at least for high risk of conflict, there's no risk of, there's no guarantee that the US and China will back down in one go and ASEAN tries to manage the conflict. Red, when you're evaluating the round, that we should think about this, and the scoring question that should frame a decision is, do we think that when ASEAN makes one decision between US and China, the US and China are going to entirely abide by it and make sure that there's going to be no circumvention in time? If there's any risk in your mind that the answer to that is going to be no, and they might try to circumvent, that the first solution we come to is not going to be the right solution, and that it might still lead to have any risk of war, then you should probably vote. You should probably be pretty comfortable voting negative, because ASEAN has no way to implement more than one solution. And so far, they just didn't have any response to this analysis in the 1 year. You should be very comfortable pulling the trigger on this in the 2 and R independently. That also rests on the ability of real conflict management, like the Aquino way. I.e., we have an argument about how the ASEAN way specifically treats off with the Aquino way, which is a new thing that scholars are recommending as Hernandez 16 evidence. That would be input, and if ASEAN didn't sort of butt in, which is more progressive and is capable of adapting to shifting times, that not only are we proving that the ASEAN way is going to inherently lead to triggering the conflict, rather they're coming at the opportunity cost of another alternative conflict resolution mechanism, which means there's no way for us to be able to, which means that only the negative actually actively scales down in the US-China conflict, whereas the affirmative only has any risk of increasing the conflict. The second way the ASEAN more fails, that it pisses off China. That's Hernandez evidence about how ASEAN will not be able to satisfy Chinese demands. That makes China angry and more likely to circumvent their agreements. That proves they should probably deck solvency, because there's no reason that they're going to be able to enforce their agreements, because ASEAN states aren't like that. I.e., they're not him. And B point, the US feels pressure to go to war because there's going to be because China's not going to be able to satisfy their demands, and ASEAN is going to continue to sort of circumvent the issues. That means that the question that we asked at the beginning of the round is there any risk of circumvention? That means you should probably be very comfortable on that at this point. 2, that leads to US-China war on the SCS. Is a conflict resolution mechanism for ASEAN escalation. The SCS is for Florida, which goes nuclear. That always any scenario 3 independent warrants. 8 point internal in terms of solvency. And we're just giving one example in the status quo, and then in the NC and with SCS, but that spills over to hotspots. That's where India, Pakistan, Kashmir, Israel, Palestine, etc. They all become potential targets for the ASEAN. They'll get left up in their model, especially India, Pakistan, because in the same Southeast Asian region. And if ASEAN has to butt in there, there's a good chance they're not going to be able to resolve the SPV. There was at least another potential hotspot. B point probability empirically proven that China and US have massive tension over the SCS. It's not a question of if, but when any longer, unless we're able to use any competent enforcement mechanisms, which ASEAN won't let us do because it circumvents the Aquino way. C point, the time frame controller makes a claim that is now is key in the SCS. China's been increasingly revisionist and adventurous in the SCS to posture against Taiwan, given the state of the sort of given their sort of state of revision right now. But the US power is also declining at the same time. That makes the US more incentivized to try and come back to the region, which causes war, because the US's best way to check back China's power and gain back some hope of power is by sort of destroying China in the SCS, which is risk war unless we resolve the conflict mechanism between the US and China through the Aquino way. There's 3 warrants of the 2 are going to win a battle on at this point. We're going to go down the line and respond to every single one of them, and at this point it's going to be game over by the time the 2 hours is over. The first one is a couple issues with that 8 point. We'll continue analysis on the McMahon evidence, but how wrong ASEAN won't get fractured. That means that ASEAN cohesion will still exist, not to trigger the link to the term. B point. Even if we don't continue the disregarded process analysis for whether or not functioning the same argument. Yes, pay attention across. The argument that McMahon makes is that there's a good risk that one country consolidates power, for example Myanmar, but ASEAN will externally still appear coordinated and cooperative, which will also cause US-China cooperation to fail, because the one countries like Myanmar, for example, in this case, is going to be pushing their agenda on US-Chinese conflict dispute mechanisms, which means that there's no way for us to be able to solve. Anyways, that means ballot 1 is gone. Ballot 2 is this argument that they are the only ones that can solve us for 1 ATV, but we have made a would solve better if ASEAN didn't. But and all they did by extending GUI is proving our internal link that ASEAN will now fight. They will post plan and think that they're nice with it and decide to intervene in the conflict, but their methods aren't sufficiently progressive enough and lock in archaic agreements which will be circumvented and cause war. That's bye-bye. Ballot 2. Ballot 3 might just no SCS for part of the different, but this doesn't count for unique thing. That's for Florida. You've already said that above, but we'll re-explain it. In the post-COVID world, we made a unique argument that the US is currently spiraling because we think that we're no longer as powerful as China, and China similarly is trying to grow in the SCS to posture against two countries, but the US and Taiwan, because China wants to be increasing their business and sort of take over the area in the SCS, but that increases tensions means that it's game over because there's a very high risk of nuclear war in the region, which means that if there's any risk that you think the SCS war is going to happen, and here you compare the Bow evidence and the Bow evidence and the Flerny and Talmadge evidence that we read. Flerny makes a really great, unique thing about how right now is key. Probably puts these evidence too unique, but that's what makes it predictive about how necessarily this SCS conflict has a unique situation where like there's going to be a high risk of war. That's ballot 3. That's out the window. Ballot 4 might be still argument to be that the impact turn is incoherent, but that argument was just like blipped out in the 1 AR as most of the 1 AR was. They're like the impact won't be incoherent. The 1 AC proves blah blah blah. We don't know what blah 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 was. The argument live war should probably be very skeptical of any 2 AR explanation. You should prevent the 2 AR from any new 2 AR extrapolation like a newborn puppy. I.e., if you can't draw a line from the 1 AR to the 2 AR with the exact warranty and argumentation, then you should probably hold the line against it and adjust. Sorry, off your flow. The chances that you're going to be able to draw an exact warrant from the 1 AR to the 2 AR are probably pretty low. Because that very few arguments on the space and all of them were ridiculously good. Which means they should be very comfortable pulling this trigger to go negative. At this point, we've extended why ASEAN internal link turns the story of the case and why it independently outweighs it means that the conflict resolution mechanisms that ASEAN's house are going to fail, which also means that there's this fault. That's the case because ASEAN is never going to have the cooperation and they're not going to have the external confidence from other people to look like they are a strong multilateral country if they're fucking up all these other dispute mechanisms. Look, first is the external impact of SCS stuff, then also the link turn there's no way. 40 seconds, right?
Case, just the impact. Curious. Everybody? Cool. Also, everybody's going to do the harshness and cause of problem. There are 3 issues with the impact turn. First, it's terminally non-unique. They do not have impact uniqueness evidence that justifies why the plan uniquely or why there's a new model sufficient to solve Australia's SCS war. They have cited this Aquina way as crucial to resolving an SCS war, but I urge you to read one of the evidence. There is one line that says Aquina, and it's at the very bottom of the evidence. It's a random solution coined by scholars. They have 0 evidence that Austrian diplomacy trades off with the Aquina way, and I urge you to look through your tuner flow and tell me what the Aquina way is. The tuner just said the words the Aquina way 30 times, but did not explain what it looks like or why it's sufficient to solve, which means that the impact term is terminally non-unique because there's no reason, because ASEAN still exists in a world of the status quo, which means that all of the things that they're talking about are still guaranteed to occur, which means that there's only a risk that the plan solves. Second, the internal links, their impact. We're going to win that the plan solves SCS war better. One is Hoy is better than any piece of evidence in the round. First, is it posted? One is Hernandez, but second, it has a warrant as to why empirically ASEAN is in the best form for resolving. One is Hoy evidence makes a claim about why ASEAN is simply been able to host security forums that promote bargaining dialogue between nations that discover the middle ground. China's time, the rules-based conflict which limited wars in the SCS and was sufficient to limiting USA wars, even if it hasn't fully been sufficient to solve. That's because the iteration has cooperated with it, which is a unique claim for the affirmative as to why centrality needs to be increased. ASEAN is the only nation that has been able to bring multiple different nations to the forum and force them to work together on numerous different platforms. There is no other regional solution that is sufficient to solve for that, which means that SCS4 goes nuclear both, which means that either SCS4 goes nuclear both ways or only the affirmative has a mechanism for solving by forcing increased US-ASEAN tensions. The tuner didn't really explain a link to the impact turn. The argument of how the noise China doesn't matter, because our argument is that China is more incentivized to work with ASEAN in a world because ASEAN is not an organization that attempts to territorially expand, which is what angers China, but rather attempts to find the middle ground between nations, which is crucial to deterring conflict. The argument about why the interlinked convention has 0 and has 0 tuner explanation. I've won a risk that the affirmative is able to solve for it, which answers that there's some convention argument. The time frame argument should frame your ballot. The act outweighs on time frame. The Aquina way is coming way too late, which means there's only a risk that the affirmative is able to solve by forcing ASEAN nations active unison. pattern on time frame. Now, up in SES war does happen, but this only one point makes a claim specific to the SES about how the plan forces U.S. and China to work together by bringing middle powers to the table and forcing diplomacy. The tuner does not have an analysis as to why the ASEAN way fails. Their argument about power integration, about why one nation attempts to yield power, was answered by the 1 ER. It was an argument that they made on the tape station. They conceded that the plan resolves it because it forces nations to act in unison. I mean, ASEAN all signed the ASEAN Economic Community, which is a justification for why ASEAN is the only nation, ASEAN is the only regional institution that has been able to discover consensus in resolving multilateral disputes because nations are willing to discover the middle ground, which forces nations like China to work together and integrate the United States, China, and ASEAN in a regional forum to promote rules-based dialogue to discover middle ground in the SES. Otherwise, there's sort of the risk that China is limited from spheres. But like, there's just no uniqueness